We usually do one in the summer during camp, just to update whatever you guys want to talk about, and rather than do it next week while we're in camp, because I'm out of town half the week, we just thought we'd do this today. Obviously, I'm sure we usually let them into camp. I don't know when we'll do that, so you guys can cover camp a little bit. But I know there's a couple guys that we've signed since the last time we met, so you want me to talk about them? Whatever this is, I'm in off-season form, so my brain's not working in too many different ways right now. So I'd rather follow your lead today.
Well, this is an honor to get the first.
I'm nervous.
First question. You talk about the guys that you have signed since the last time we spoke. I think Trey at that point had committed, so you couldn't speak about him publicly. Could you just kind of go into detail on Trey,
yeah.
Keyshawn, and I guess J.R. Bolden?
Yep. Yeah, those three guys that you just brought up. Obviously, the grad transfer recruiting has become, and it's not just basketball. It's across all sports. This is not. Grad transfers is not a basketball thing. It's across all sports. It's become a popular, I shouldn't say popular, it's become a new recruiting pool that we all have to pay attention to. And it's interesting because it's similar to a one and done on the back end instead of the front end. Does that make sense? I felt that we needed some experience. I really like our freshman guards coming in. It's hard to understand where things are going to be at 10 months from now. You know, trying to predict stuff in today's day and age with 18-year-olds is a little different than it used to be. Not in a bad way. It's just different. With all that said, I really like that. However, I think I said it numerous times last year where point guard play was something that I felt we didn't do as well as we needed to do. And I think Hassani will be a lot better this year, just like he was a lot better last year than he was the year before. I think that's just normal. I really like our freshman guards. Their mindset, their playmaking abilities, I don't know. I've got a good feel for them right now, and Jermaine and TJ. But I didn't want to go into the season with so many freshman guys. And Trey's he's an interesting deal. He very good player. I watched him play a ton when he was in high school. Very good player in high school. Went to Georgetown, didn't visit anywhere else. Played a ton of games for Georgetown. I'm not going to sit here, just like we did with Frank Booker last year, I'm not going to sit here and try and figure out, well, he averaged 3 points a game, so he's not very good. He's a stopgap. I'm not into that. I think the way he plays fits who we are. I like his demeanor. I've always respected him as a player. And he's a point guard. And that's going to, rather than worry about his stats and all that, he had to play in the structure that Georgetown played in. If you remember, they used to play a version, JT3 ran a version of the Princeton offense, which means you have to sacrifice to play in structure, which, unlike the new wave of thinking, life is not about just showing up and doing whatever you want to do. It's about coexisting in structure with other talented people, and he's shown he's willing to do that. So I get excited about that. And then the other two guys, Jair. Jair's been on the radar for us from the day he said he was leaving GW. I like him a lot. He played for Bob Hurley in high school. And my first conversation with him and his dad was pretty simple. It was like Bob Hurley drugged the best out of him, and they want to be around somebody that's going to challenge him every day. And For them to even put my name in the same sentence with Coach Hurley was just like unbelievable to me. So, so I'm excited about Jair. Once again, point guard, can play the two, has played major minutes just like Trey. So in practice, and I get it. Okay, well, he's not going to play till the following year. You're right. I hope you guys heard all I spoke about when we got Brian back out here in January and Roth Felder back, and then those guys came back around and Dwayne Notice. I spoke a lot about practice. I get it, man. Everyone talks about games because that's what everyone's privy to. The matchups in practice are where guys get better. So now we take TJ or Jermaine. They're dealing with a guy who's played 65 college games and not just been on the bench kind of, you know, clapping, like on the court. They're dealing with that guy every day in practice. There's a maturity. There's an attention to detail. There's an excitement that those older guys bring to the table every day that makes young guys learn how to do things and have to compete at a higher level. That's going to be in place. And then the last one, Key's he's a dynamic player. Once again, been on our radar for a while. If you guys pay attention to recruiting, which I know you do, especially the gentleman back here over here, I couldn't take Key if Brian was going to be here. It wouldn't have been fair to him or Brian. So we were waiting, and he waited on the whole Brian situation to get cleared up. And once Brian made his decision, then obviously we had a necessity for a big wing, and we pushed in his direction. But high flyer, athletic, shoots it, has to learn how to trust his shot. Some guys shoot it and it's ugly. He shoots it and it looks good, but he's so get to the rim kind of mindset that he's got to learn how to trust his shot. And you know, but he runs, and you know, but they're all freshmen, so I like their demeanor. I'm telling you, I 10 months from now, I might sit here and talk to you about a different freshman. I don't know, but I really like the makeup. Alonzo Frink, I just saw him this past week. He's good. I knew he was good in high school. He's a lot better than even I thought he was. So I'm excited about those guys.
Coach, just following up on that, you talk about the excitement for some of the young guards coming in. What will be the challenge for these guys for the next few months to just kind of build that chemistry and try to play as a cohesive unit as you get closer and closer to the first game?
Yeah, here's the difference between this time last year and this time this year. At this time last year, Chris, Mike, Hassani, let's just pick on them three right now. Okay, they came off a Final Four. Everyone's telling them how great they were. They'd always been secondary players. They didn't understand how to manage the dynamics that need to be managed in a locker room when no one's watching, okay? And then the lights came on. And then I was down their throats about not being leaders, but about making sure that the new guys understood how we do things. And trying to do that, I was down their throats about that the whole summer. And now the lights come on, and then everyone's in your ear about you have to do this, you have to do that, which is the world we live in because of social media and so many ways to communicate with young people. You know, Chris starts having a lot of success. So now you start, as a coach, you start managing a different dynamic with him. It's not just about doing your job and leading, and which is what he wants to do, and helping us win games, but now he's a human being. He's got people talking about the NBA. And it's a matter of getting him to understand how, Chris, the NBA time will come. Don't worry about that in the season. And it's normal. That's not different for Chris. It's the same way it's been with Sindarius and PJ, and it's just that's what happens when you have a good player on your team. Those guys now are in a better place to be able to manage the things that need to be communicated within the locker room in the offseason to help prepare these young guys. Trey Campbell. Trey played in the NCAA tournament. See, that was a big thing for me with Frank Booker. He was on the court in a Sweet 16 game for Oklahoma. like made 4 threes in that game. He had been in that moment. So he obviously didn't have success after that, but he had success there, and he understood what it took to get there. So I'm not surprised that he took the steps he took as a player. I think Trey will be the same way. TJ, TJ was the leading scorer on the #1 high school team in the country, Memphis East. And then he transferred to go to Findlay Prep. And at Findlay Prep, the other 4 guys on the court all signed high major scholarships. So he had to learn how to go from let me go score every time to let me play like a point. And he did it. I shouldn't say he had to learn. I had never seen him play that way. And now I saw him play that way. That's why we waited. He wanted to come in the fall. I didn't think I needed a point guard back in November. But as I saw it, we kept watching him play over the course of the year. I was like, okay, this guy can play there. So it's I think we got some pieces in place for the new guys to really have clear vision as to what they need to do every day at this time of year and once September gets here to help us prepare for games.
Frank, how surprised were you when the news came out about Brian Bowen and the NCAA's decision to keep him out at least a year? And what's his mindset? And I guess the third part of that question is, what do you think is best for him at this point? He already pulled out of the draft, but is it better for him to play overseas and then come back?
Yeah. Am I surprised? No. I'm realistic enough to understand when we took him that this was a possibility. Was I disappointed? Yes. Let me give you a little behind-the-scenes thought process on Brian and his mindset. Brian flew to Chicago for the Combine. He was in Chicago for 6 days. From Chicago, he flew to 5 different cities for 5 consecutive NBA workouts. That's 11 straight days of work, okay? Because that's when you're trying to be a pro. I understand we want to talk about that these kids are pro in college. If Brian was here, he would not have done that for 11 straight days in the offseason, okay? That's what pros do. He was pursuing that, trying to figure that one out. So he went 11 straight days of workouts with professional players. He got off a plane and met us at a restaurant to host a recruit for the weekend. That's how much that kid wanted to be here. That's how much he loves and continues to love his experience here and what this was all about. So was I surprised? No. I mean, I know what I walked into. I know the decision I made. Do I regret it? Not one bit, because of the person that he is. Was I disappointed? Yes. But he's a proud part of what we do. He's a Gamecock. I don't mean to sound cheesy saying that, but that's him. This is his home now. He'll forever wear a T-shirt that's got that Block C and take tremendous pride, as we will as he goes through his journey. As far as what's in store, reason for pulling out of the draft now is so he can be eligible for the draft next year. Whether he plays in the G League or overseas and all that, those are decisions that will be made, by him and his agent as to what's the best situation, not just financially, best situation where he can have. He's such an unbelievable kid. He deserves to be in a good organization, whether it's the G League or overseas, so he can get the opportunity to keep playing and develop I got a kick, when he went to the Combine, of how many people were prepared in the media, national guys, to destroy him on his performance. His first game out there, he didn't play well, okay? Got destroyed by all these so-called experts out there. How about his second game where he had 14 and 12? I didn't read not one of them bozos come back and say, you know what? Let's give it to the kid. He was nervous yesterday. He played better today. Maybe he is an NBA player, which, by the way, I'm not an expert. I don't know the NBA. I've never worked in the NBA. I'm fortunate. I believe there's 12 guys that I've been fortunate to be around that not only made it to the NBA but have kept their jobs for a long, long time in the NBA. So I kind of have an idea of the talent that's needed and the makeup that's needed. Brian Bowen's an NBA guy. It ain't no doubt. Whoever gives them an opportunity is going to have a guy on their team for a long time. So, but that's the route. That's what the future holds, and we'll figure out here real soon what's best for him.
Frank, I know you were talking with Cap and Corey yesterday on the show about how, I mean, you've said it in the past too, about just after basketball, how close you stay with these guys. You owe it to them to be men down the road. Have you had any talks with Brian since that decision, and especially within the last couple of days as he was making that decision to pull his name out of the draft?
Yeah, I spoke with his dad. I speak with Brian and the family pretty regularly. Leading into the day that the NCAA made the decision they made, and which kind of pigeonholed them into only one choice. We spoke regularly. Since that day, Tuggs and I have texted each other a handful of times, and then his dad and I spoke. What was it, June 10th? The day that earlier that day, where he called and we were talking, and he was explaining to me that this is a decision they're going to make to be eligible for next summer's draft and all that. So, yeah, we stay in touch. They live here. They live here. I'm just telling you. Listen, I'm not going to get into the good and the bad and the ugly, but I will say this: we all tend to forget our sins that we've made in life, and when other people commit mistakes, we tend to kind of criticize and treat them and ostracize them as if they're like bad human beings. I kind of spoke about that yesterday with Corey and the captain. As a society, we're too quick to judge people on mistakes. Let's all look in the mirror and let's figure out what we've done in our life, and if we were judged on those mistakes, if we deserve to be where we're at today. And the reason we are where we're at today is because people have allowed us to be normal, be a human, which means get away from our mistakes, learn, grow. He's a real good kid, man. He's going to be real successful. He's going to make us all proud that we were willing to give him a chance because of the way he's going to conduct his life and move forward.
Along those lines, you talked about like a guy like Jeter who will practice with you this year and help you out. Obviously, Brian helped you out this past year. What other positives do you think you'll take? Obviously, the number one positive would have been had he played for you, but what things do you think helps your team, going forward? The fact that what did you think the most you guys got out of his presence here?
By the way, one of the greatest things of living in South Carolina is that it doesn't get too cold, so I can drink iced coffee year round. It's phenomenal. I don't have to drink that hot coffee, make me sweat. It's iced coffee, Phil.
That endorsement.
Huh?
That endorsement.
Well, no, that probably wouldn't go. Who he is. I'm just telling you who he is as a teammate. He brings people together. Forget his talent. We all worry about talent too much. Listen, all the guys that play here have talent. So it's not a talent thing. Yes, is he an NBA talent? Yes, he is. Think about Justin Minaya. That's who Justin matched up with every single day in practice. So you see Justin starting in January. He got a little tired and didn't play real well for a stretch there. But by the end of the year, Justin was starting to play good again. Well, one of the reasons is because he couldn't disengage, which a lot of freshmen do. They disengage because they've never had to mentally and physically stay engaged for such a long period of time. Justin had no choice because Brian's a talented kid. So Justin had to engage in that matchup every single day in practice. So eventually Justin was able to just go play, and staying on edge that way helped him. But the biggest thing with Brian is who he was as a teammate. I mean, that guy being here at 10:30 at night shooting basketballs. He's not playing in games. There's no clarity whether or not he can ever play in a game for us in February. But that didn't stop him. When he had that choice to make where he's sitting in his dorm room And okay, so there's a party over at 5 Points. Yeah, you know, that I'm 18 years old. That'd be pretty neat, man. I'm on a college campus. I'm a popular kid. I can go to 5 Points and everyone's want to hang out with me. And he had a choice. Can I do that, or do I go in the gym when no one's watching and shoot a million balls? He'd go in the gym and shoot a million balls. So who he is as a teammate helped us. It helped a lot of guys on our team. It helped some guys that are trying to figure stuff out say, oh, wow, that's what good players do. Oh. You know, that was pretty good, you know. And I'll tell you where I realized how good he was when Sin and those guys came in for that day that they all practiced with our guys. He was on that team with Sin, PJ, Dwayne, Justin. I left that day saying Brian might be the best one on the court. How good he was playing with other real good players. It was ridiculous. And I'm disappointed that I don't get to coach him in a game, but I'm ecstatic that I got to know him as a human being and that I get to be a small part of his life moving forward.
Frank, why was it a good decision for Chris to come back for one more year?
The feedback he got from the NBA. I mean, you know, it's he's a very grounded kid. He's got unbelievable. What's the word I'm looking for here? In a time where everyone's very money hungry. You know, people are like pushing these kids that life's about money. You know, go make money. The people taking advantage of you, make money, make money. That Frank makes a lot of money because of you, go make money, blah, blah, blah. That's because that's the mindset that exists out there right now. It's as a coach, it's fun to know that he's surrounded by people that don't think that way. It's great as a coach to know that a guy on your team actually thinks that his experience here and his education and his degree, I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag. Emily's doing something powerful with him right now. But to think of a guy that 5 years ago didn't speak a word of English, he's going to have a college degree, and that was important to him. Think about this. Haven't we devalued the most powerful tool that we have in our life when we act like college education isn't important anymore? I mean, seriously, what are we doing in life? You know, when all we worry about the 10 guys that can make $1 million, but we don't worry about the power of education, which is what these kids are getting, which is why I'm sitting here speaking to you. It's not because I'm a good X and O guy. I could have been a good X and O guy that bounced at night, coached summer league ball. But I'm sitting here talking to you because I got a college education, which allowed me to engage in education as a profession. And we've devalued that. We act like that's irrelevant. Come on, man, give me a break. That was important to him, to know that 5 years ago, English, what is that? And now he's going to have a college degree from one of the great academic institutions in the country. But, you know, he also has a dream of playing in the NBA, so that's important. And when he went through the process, the feedback came back that a year, those guys pay attention. They come to all our practices. They come to games. They pay attention. They've seen where he was at in high school, where he was at as a freshman, and where he's at as a junior. And the opinion is if he can take another step in the right direction, he becomes a draftable player. Does that mean he would not have been drafted this year? No. But there wasn't any sense of security that he would be drafted. So therefore, you know, if this was a bad option, he probably would have stayed. But since his degree, his experience, the people around him, not just me and my assistants, but from Emily to Ray Tanner and the academic folks, from everyone around him, there's a comfort level that he's getting better as a human being. So he's treated the right way here. He's having a great experience. His education is important to him. And he gets to do all that and continue to get better. So one of his dreams, maybe he can achieve one day. So that's why he's still here.
Where does he need to grow his game?
That next step, passing, You know, he's got to be better. He's a great rim defender. Takes charges, blocks shots, strong, doesn't get out of the way. He's got to be better. Like, he's a 6'8" guy. You know, who in the NBA post up anymore? So he's got to learn how to defend out on the perimeter, which he's better at now than he was 2 years ago. That's one of the reasons. I'm not here to toot my horn. I don't do that in recruiting. I'm not going to do it here. One of the things I take a lot of pride in is my guys getting better defensively. So the ones that get an opportunity to play in the NBA, they never get cut because they can't defend. Everyone in the NBA can score. The guys that can't score, the guys that can't defend get cut. It's plain and simple. And the ones that score and defend become the great ones, okay? I don't want my guys to ever get cut because they can't defend. So we take a lot of pride in trying to get our guys better. And if you look at the history of the guys I've been fortunate to be around that have played in the NBA, that's what's kept them in the NBA for a long time, is their ability to continue to get better, whether it's Rodney Magruder or it's Steve Blake or Udonis Haslem or Shindarius Thornwell, or where PJ's getting ready to go here in the next couple of years. Those guys keep their jobs in the NBA for a long time because they guard their matchup. Whether it's a shooter, whether it's a power forward, whoever, they're going to guard their matchup. And that's the next step for Chris. Chris can really shoot it. He's got to be a better passer. You know, we all think that guys are perimeter players because they can shoot the ball. That doesn't make you a perimeter player. That makes you a guy that can shoot the ball. He's got to learn how to be more of a perimeter guy. So when he's in an NBA game and strategy is switch ball screens, he doesn't hurt your team because he stands out there and can't defend the ball. Does that make sense? So all that stuff. It's got to be, here's what's crazy. We think he's a good rebounder. He's got to be a better defensive rebounder. He doesn't rebound on the defensive end as well as he needs to. Part of that is because he's so determined in blocking shots and taking charges that he takes himself out of rebounding opportunities on plays that he doesn't need to. Does that make sense what I'm saying? You know what that is? Basketball knowledge. Been playing 5 years. He just needs to keep playing so he can make better decisions. Little man, you got any questions over here? You sure?
Frank, we know you're a big fan of the other sports here on campus. What do you think?
Oh, yeah.
In particular of the just the women's sports this season, women's soccer Final Four, 2 Elite Eights of basketball and softball. What do you think about the success they've had, and why do you think they've had that success?
Big shout out to both Bev and Mark for what they did here in softball and baseball here coming down the stretch. Unbelievable. Had me on the edge of my seat, you know, on 2 different weekends to get their teams to where they did. But to your point, I'm around them. I see who they are. You know, it's there's an unbelievable. It starts with Ray Tanner, okay? Coach Tanner doesn't micromanage us, okay? Coach Tanner creates internal expectations for us, and he allows us to do our jobs, and he gives us what we need to do our jobs. And then it's up to us to come in here and not show up with the, well, you know, this school gets that and this school gets it. Once you create that mindset, your whole demeanor is like, ugh. So your players don't want to play for you. Here, we don't have that. When you get around, whether it's, you know, Shelly or Bev or Dawn, there's an unbelievable enthusiasm for what they do, for the school, for the opportunity, for everything that you know comes with it. I enjoy being around them. You know, beach volleyball. I spent some time with them last year. I'd see their coaches. There's this enthusiasm, which you got to have. It starts in recruiting. If I'm recruiting you and I start trying to hide what we're about because I'm concerned that you might not like it, even if you come here, you're already coming here with a complex that we're not good enough. It starts in recruiting, and it's. I see the work ethic. I see how hard they work. I see who they are. The popular thing is to talk about winning games in all the sports, okay? I believe that you either do your whole job or it doesn't work. And in the business that we're in, contrary to the national popular belief, I shouldn't say national, that's not fair. That's like painting everyone with a brush. To the Twitter heroes that believe that we take advantage of people, education is a big part of the decision that the majority of student athletes make when they come to college, okay? Being a part of the college experience. All this is important to the majority. Think about that now. 98% of them come here because they want education. They don't come here because I want to get paid, all right? Big difference. I see how they go about their business. This university leads the SEC year in and year out in student-athlete graduates percentage, student-athletes GPA, I don't want to misspeak here, academic honor roll, and the whole SEC now, okay? That's not because one team has 2 walk-ons that got nice GPAs. That's because there's an unbelievable commitment to it from the whole campus. So now that makes everyone work. Community service. Go out and look. How many hours of community service all these teams are putting into this community? That means that you're genuinely invested. And that doesn't happen just with your athletes. Your coaches are on board with that too. There's an unbelievable commitment here to do things the right way across the board. I'm a big believer, call me old-fashioned, that when you do everything the right way, winning takes care of itself. And no one here puts the score of a game above doing right by people. And that's what they all do. I mean, that's why you see them ladies, whether it's on the basketball court, the soccer field, golf, tennis, just think about it. Softball, there's an unbelievable enthusiasm to go on that court and compete and represent this university, you know, because of how much they invest into each other, into their program, and into the university as a whole.
Thank you. Oh, 2 questions. What are your plans for your remaining scholarship for 2018? And then looking at the in-state crop for 2019, it looks to be a very good year. The importance between, like you and Brad Brownell at Clemson as the 2 main programs, kind of locking down the state and keeping that kind of talent in state. Is there some pressure on you guys to do that, considering the players that left the state in the 2018 class?
You had to give him the microphone?
Sorry.
Let me answer the easy one first, and then the complicated one. I got to be careful how I say it because I don't need to get myself in trouble, okay? The easy one is, what am I going to do with the last scholarship? I'd like to sign a guy that's good enough to play in the NBA. That's good, ain't it? The plan is to use it, Phil, the last scholarship. The plan is to fill it. We're in there pretty good with some guys that we've been recruiting for a while, and it's a matter of guys just making a decision. I'm excited about the possibilities for that last scholarship. And we might get good news there here pretty soon. But in this world of recruiting, I never get too excited until they actually show up and hug me after attending class. That tells me they're stuck with me. So the second part, I've said this from the day I got here. Recruiting this state is very important to me. This state is very underrated in basketball at the grassroots level. We have some very good coaches in this state at the grassroots level. It's not that there's not good players in this state. It's that they get overshadowed because of the attention to football and baseball. Simple as that. And anyone that tries to argue with that just doesn't want to think clearly. That's the truth. Now, this is where I can get myself in trouble, and I'm going to try very hard not to. Obviously, in the class of 19 locally, I'm very happy with some decisions that have already been made. You cover recruiting, I think you know what I'm talking about, okay? I'm very excited about where we're at recruiting the in-state kids. Now, to your question about the ones that have chosen to leave, that's where I got to be careful here. I've been here for 6 years, Phil. My staff and I have worked very, very hard at recruiting the way it matters, which is building relationships, not trying to say what I can do for you or you can do for me. That's phony recruiting. Real relationships. I think the people in this state, I can't speak for Brad at Clemson. That's not because it's Clemson. Their name of the university can be Timbuktu. I still can't speak for him. I respect Brad. I think Brad does things the right way, and I think he's a heck of a basketball coach. I can't speak for him. I know I can speak for myself. I know how hard we've worked to build relationships. Do me a favor. Research the 6 years that I've been here, anyone in this room, and I'm willing to put the experience that P.J. Dozier, Justin Mackey, Sindarius Thornwell have had as players that came here, their experience, their playing time, and their success rate, and how much better they got against anyone else. Is that fair for me to say? Is that, you understand what I'm saying or no? I'm willing, you do it. I've done it. I speak about it in recruiting in private. I'm not ready to speak about it publicly. I don't think I ever will because that's not fair. People got to make decisions that's best for them, not what's best for me or what's best for South Carolina. But I can tell you this, the in-state kids that have chosen to come to school here, those guys have had, 2 of them have college degrees. One's employed by me. The other one is a pro. The third one started every game with the exception of 2 that he played here for 2 years. And PJ got a lot better as a player, and he's a pro. And they went to a Final Four, and we had a Player of the Year. So I don't know. That's decision. Everyone's got to make a decision what's best for them. I'm smart enough to know this, Phil. In today's day and age, there's no such thing as pigeonholing your recruiting anymore. Recruiting is nationwide, worldwide. I've built real relationships with people in this state because that's how I live my life. I'm a relationship guy. I'm genuine. What you see is what you get. I do that in recruiting. I'm not a used car salesman. If what we do is not, like there's a guy in the class of 19 that thinks that what we do is real good for him. And I think he is real good. Home run. Is that, you with me on that? If the other guys don't think what we do is real good for them, then I got to go get Alonzo Frank. I got to go get T.J. Moss. I got to go get Jermaine Cousinard. I got to go get guys from other places that they get excited. I can tell you this. Alonzo Frank came here, and he's being recruited by another big-time school. And he came here, and he said, wow. In my wildest dreams did I ever think basketball so big at South Carolina, from our offices, our practice, the way we do things, what we showed them about what we're about. Same thing with T.J. Moss. Same thing with Jermaine Cousinard. And those guys are being recruited by some high-profile universities. They got excited about what we do. They want to be here. Sindarius did. P.J. did. Justin did. You know, Brian Steele, another in-state kid, he doesn't have the pedigree in high school those other guys did. Brian Steele, he swears by his experience here. Heck, I can't, he's like that lost puppy dog. We've gotten him a master's degree, a Final Four, and I can't get rid of him. He won't go anywhere. And he's a talented young man that's going to be a heck of a basketball coach. Tamarcus Blanton, he's not an in-state guy, but he's nearby. He's a couple hours away. It's important to me. It's a heck of a lot easier to drive 45 minutes to recruit than it is to get on a plane and travel 3 hours and be away from my family and recruit. But it's got to be right for them. But I'll say that this is what I'll say to close. My first 2-3 years here, we play 18, 19 home games. We'd have a handful total a handful of good players come to games and sit behind the bench. Now I can't get enough seats to fit those guys back there. So, but then when it comes time to decision, they got to do what's right for them. They got to do what's right for them. It's I've said this before. I'm into real recruiting, not phony recruiting. I think offering kids in 9th and 10th grade, I don't care what kids put on social media. Hey, blessed. My son did that. Do what you got to do. Truth be told, I know a lot of guys that have my job. They don't offer. The assistants offer. I don't let my assistants offer. Now, if those blessed sophomores get in front of the head coach, they'd be surprised. Very few of them really have an offer. So I think it's irresponsible recruiting, not on the kids, by people at my jobs, to offer 9th and 10th graders, because when they're 9th and 10th graders, you have not had a chance to build a relationship. If there's no relationship, then recruiting's phony. It's not real. If recruiting's phony, then when they show up on your campus, your relationship's phony. So that's why they transfer. That's why you have 900 transfers. That's why you average 800 transfers a year over the last 4 years. But but everyone gets to do their job however they want to do it. I'm not here to say you got to do it a certain way. I do it in a way where I'm about relationships. There's not a kid in that class that we have not. I'll say this, Phil. We have spent more time with every one of those kids you're talking about than any other university in this country. I don't care what anyone tells you. We spent more time on the phone, in person, on our campus and their campus recruiting them. I'm willing to put this on the table, too. I've watched every one of those kids that have made decisions to go somewhere else. I've watched them more than any other head coach in the country. They didn't come. It is what it is. Doesn't mean we can't win. We still went to a Final Four. We still we've had 4 consecutive winning seasons for the first time since 70s. You understand what I'm saying, Phil? I'd like, listen, this is a small state. It's not a big state. It's a small state. You know how powerful it is, and this is what I've learned about South Carolinians because I'm adopted here, so I've had to learn the culture here. When you're a South Carolinian, people take tremendous pride in you being a South Carolinian. I see Bruce Ellington, what he's doing with that camp he runs in Moncks Corner, that's off the charts. That's powerful. Our safety, number 36. That celebrity game he's doing to raise money for funds here in our own state. Just keep going. Marcus Latimer, what those guys have done, what Sindarius is starting to do, what PJ will eventually do to make things better for the young people in this state. South Carolinians are proud South Carolinians. There can't be anything more powerful for someone that's from this state than when they play in college, so surround their heart with their state name and their family name for obvious reasons. And the guys that do it, love it. The ones that choose not to do it, that's their decision. I'll say this, and then if you got any other questions, I told you I'm going to get myself in trouble on this because this is my job, to recruit basketball for our university in this state. You can argue with me. I'm willing to argue. I'm not a good arguer because I don't like getting mad. You guys think I like being mad. I don't. But in my lifetime, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett, no, Stanley Roberts, okay? 3 guys that were all high-profile guys that all made in basketball, all made the decision to leave the state, okay? One of them's in the Hall of Fame. How many times have you seen a kid in the state of South Carolina, as prideful as South Carolinians are, wearing one of those guys' jerseys in a gym? Talking about Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, Hall of Fame now. When's the last time you saw just one kid? I've been here 6 years. I've never seen a kid with any of those guys' jerseys. That's a shame. They all got family in the state. That's a shame. You know, it's a shame. But that's a decision they made, and they've been very successful with their decisions. I know this. Everywhere I go, I see somebody talking or wearing or whatever a Jadeveon Clowney. You know what I'm starting to see? Sindarius Thornwell jerseys. I've had people text me pictures from day camps at different camps around the state, kids at camp with a Sindarius Thornwell jersey on. That's the kind of stuff that unfortunately hasn't happened around here in basketball. I'm hoping Sindarius, PJ, Justin, their successes, Brian, their successes, that eventually turns the tide to where an 8th grader, like the guy in 2019, gets out of bed every day and says, I want to be a Gamecock and I want to play for that guy. Does that make sense what I'm saying? And you still got to recruit them, because if not, they need to go somewhere else. But at the end of the day, it's their decision to be made. Sorry, I told you, I'm going to get myself in trouble. But this is the battle I fight in recruiting every day. It's, you know, it's, you know, I want to be able to have Marcus Lattimore and J.D. Clowney and all those NFL guys. You know, they grow up and they can't wait to be a Gamecock. I want to be able to go through that. Doesn't mean recruiting gets easier, but it gives you a real opportunity to sign them. You know, and for whatever reason in basketball, you know, that's kind of, it used to be like that. When George Glenn and Carl Williams were around, all these in-state kids wanted to be Gamecocks. Now all of a sudden that changed, and we're going to keep working. We're not, you know, when you thought I was going to ram my head against the wall, which I thought about a couple times, I didn't give in. I kept doing my part. My staff kept doing its part, and our players kept doing their part, and eventually we turned it and started winning. We're going to eventually turn it, and where we're going to have more guys want to stay, because you can't argue the fact that those guys that came here have had success at a high level. Whether they've been more successful or not than the ones that left, I'll let you decide that. But you can't argue the fact that the ones that came have had success during their time here and continue to have success and be prideful of being a part of this after their time here. I didn't include Bruce Ellington in that one earlier. Him too, all those guys.
You sat here the last time, I think, and said that you feel like you're in a good place with your roster. And obviously at that point, Brian's decision was up in the air, Chris's decision was up in the air. Since that time, there's been more guys come in. Talk about one scholarship left. Bringing in Keyshawn at that position on the wing. How do you feel about that position in particular? Obviously, Brian was going to be a big piece of that. Justin's development there. How do you feel about the depth you have there, and what is the next step for Justin maybe at that spot?
Yeah, Justin's strength, man, just confidence. You know about a kid who last spring was going to do one more year of high school. Just so he can be better prepared. You're talking about a kid who basically been a primary baseball player up until a year before that. He in our workouts now, he's so much stronger. You know, he's been through. You guys heard me say this with PJ. When his freshman year ended, it was like, whoo. It's like someone took this like big sack of bricks off his shoulders. Justin's kind of the same way, you know, and now that he's separated from the season, he's even more excited than he's ever been to get better and attack next season. He's physically, he's in a much better place right now. Justin is. You know, Brian, I wanted him to be a big part of what we did. Keyshawn was kind of, I don't want to say on hold. That's not fair to him. He put everyone else on hold to figure out what we wanted to do because he wanted to be here so bad. Does that make sense? I'm excited about Keyshawn. I would have offered Keyshawn as soon as the season ended if I would have known Brian was not going to be eligible. But it wouldn't be fair to Justin, Keyshawn, and Brian to have three freshmen, sophomore, whatever, you know what I'm talking about, that we're all competing for the same kind of role. That's not fair. If you do that in recruiting, you create yourself a problem by putting kids in overloading kids in one place in the same class. You know, if you got freshman, junior, sophomore, senior, well, they got to figure that one out. But when you've had 3 pretty much all 18 years old, that's not fair to them. But, you know, Keyshawn wanted to be here. I'm big on guys that want to be here, man. We got to recruit. We got to sell them on who we are, how we can help, the opportunities that through work and commitment to each other that we can create. And the ones that say, I get excited about how you do things, man. I think your situation's big time. Those guys, I got to beg a guy to come to school here. I'm probably going to have to beg him to do everything else once he gets here. Does that make sense? But I like our roster. I understand guys transfer. I get that. If you go across the country, everyone has had guys transfer. If you would have told me that Chris Silva, Mike Kotsar, and Felipe Hassani, that those guys are transferring, I would have said, okay, there's a problem. Here are guys that have had tremendous success, and all of a sudden they packed their bags and they left. I would have said, ooh. But that's not who left. You know, we had transfers when Sindarius was a freshman. Well, Sindarius and Justin didn't leave. You see what I'm saying? The guys in place, and I'm not trying to take a knock at the guys that transferred. No, it just, for whatever reasons, you know, and I'm not going to get into individual situations, but for whatever reasons, they needed to pursue opportunities somewhere else. I get it. I understand. I transferred. I'm not into blaming people for transferring. But the guys that stayed, those are the guys that played the bulk of the minutes for us last year. So that's why I'm happy with our roster. Sorry to bore you guys. Last time. You got a question?